When asked to comment on the information provided by sources on the alleged Dong communications, CISA spokesperson Eric Balsam wrote in a statement that the service could neither confirm nor deny the authenticity of the information. This should be the first paragraph. This should be in the headline.
To my wife, Sophie, and my kids, I love you. I thank you for all the support and love you give me. The truth will protect us. Our honor and our family will get through this together. Sorry about that. Thank you, Speaker.
Man, this is fucking sad. I'm like on the verge of tears. It's a wonderful day in the homie hood, a wonderful day for a homie. Won't you be my homie to Taro? We have another development in the ongoing drip from CSIS, which has been alleging these allegations all over the place, and against Chinese Canadians specifically. So the latest development is that Liberal MP Han Dong has advised a Chinese diplomat in 2021 to delay freeing the Michaels. Now, if you don't remember, there was this hysterical time in Canadian news where all we could talk about was the Michaels, the Michaels, the Michaels, the Michaels. And because they don't even have their individual identities, they are just both named Michael. And it was when Canada had arrested, on behalf of America, the vice president of Huawei, Meng Wanzhou. So, this was a time when Canadian-Chinese relationships really deteriorated. And it was really unfortunate that Meng Wanzhou got caught in Canada and we were forced to, by the US, because what are we going to say? We're the US's bitch. Was forced to take Meng Wanzhou under custody. So, as a result of this, there is now increased fallout that is hitting Liberal MP Han Dong. And Global News has got the latest scoop about this, saying that he advised a Chinese diplomat in 2021 to delay freeing the two Michaels. It's really bizarre. This still is not corroborated, and we don't know who the CSIS leaker is. And at the advice of the former director of CSIS, I think it's important to consider that these leaks might not even be coming from inside of CSIS. And that is the problem with all of this kind of undercover reporting. We don't know where it's coming from, who it's coming from. We are basically trusting Global News and the Globe and Mail to ensure that they are getting this right, which is very kind of concerning, right? Because we really don't know, and by the time we find out, it might be too late, because the general public in Canada has already made up their mind, saying that China is interfering in Canadian elections. Although I do not believe that to be true. I'm at least waiting to see more evidence of that. So, Liberal MP Han Dong, who is at the center of the Chinese influence allegations, privately advised a senior Chinese diplomat in February 2021 that Beijing should hold off freeing Michael Korvig and Michael Spavor, according to two separate national security sources. Now, I really think that, this is kind of this is really not a good framing, because this says sources at the end. A lot of people are just going to read the headline. They're just going to read all the way to here, actually. Liberal MP Han Dong secretly advised Chinese diplomat in 2021 to delay freeing two Michaels. Sources. And it's the same with this first paragraph as well. They're they're stating it as if it's fact. And then they're saying, according to two separate national security sources. It's okay, so wait, we actually don't even know that this is true, but so I think this is really irresponsible with the headline and this opening paragraph. It's not really good journalism. You would want to make it outright that you don't actually know if this is true or not. And they really failed to do that here on Global News. Why? Probably because they're doing it for the clicks. Both sources said Dong allegedly suggested to Han Tao, China's consul general in Toronto, that if Beijing released the two Michaels, whom China accused of espionage, the opposition conservatives would benefit. Now, another thing to keep in mind here is that it's unclear how the conservatives would benefit from the two Michaels being released. It is really confusing to me because if the two Michaels were released, as they eventually were, it was a major victory for Justin Trudeau. So I don't understand how releasing them earlier would have been bad for the Liberals. And I've yet to see anybody explain that in a way that makes sense. At the time, the two Canadians had been in Chinese custody for over 2 years. However, it was widely perceived that they were jailed in retribution for Canada's detention of Meng Wanzhou, the Huawei executive facing extradition to the United States. Now, the thing that we never talk about in polite Canadian society is that the two Michaels are agents of espionage. They are spies. They obviously, China knew about them. And the way that we talk about them is as if they were just like normal citizens and they have families in Canada, but they are spies. They know the risk of the game that they are playing. They're not just like random people off the street who got like kidnapped by China. No, they're not. They're agents of espionage, but they never talk about this in mainstream media. Dong also allegedly recommended that Beijing show some progress in the Kovrig and Spavor cases. The two sources said such a move would help the ruling Liberal Party, which was facing an uproar over China's inhumane treatment of Kovrig and Spavor. Okay, but I mean, we also have to remember that we were also doing the exact same inhumane treatment of detaining Meng Wanzhou as a political prisoner. So, you know, like, what did you think was going to happen? It was an eye for an eye, and the whole world is blind to the facts that are coming out around this case. Dong, who represents the Toronto area riding of Don Valley North, more like Dong Valley North, am I right, was the one to initiate the discussion with the consul general. The two sources said, adding that Dong stipulated at the outset that it was both a personal and work-related conversation. Okay? And in an emailed statement to Global News sent Tuesday, Dong confirmed that he had a discussion with Consul General Han, but disputed that he initiated it and also denies that he advised Beijing to delay releasing Kovrig and Spavor from prison. I raised the status of Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig and called for their immediate release, he wrote. The thing is, like, are they going to release the phone call? Because I really want to judge for myself. Whether what Han Dong did was wrong or not. Like, I want to hear the full phone conversation, or at least have it translated if it needs to be, and figure out what is the context, right? Because I think the thing that's missing from all of this is the context. For example, if you knew that China had no intention of releasing the two Michaels, would it really be weird to be like, hey, like, don't release them yet? But like, well, they're not going to release them. It's not like Han Dong has control over the Chinese Communist Party or like the nation of China. Like, it's not like Han Dong is this mastermind who can somehow both pull the puppet strings on both Justin Trudeau and Xi Jinping. You know, it's like, it's just like kind of wild that he's been given this much credit as an agent of like masterful espionage. So it's wild to me. I raised the status of Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig and called for their immediate release. At every opportunity before they returned home, I adamantly demanded their release to Canada without delay. Any suggestions otherwise are false and are attempts to mislead you and your readers and slander me. So, I mean, again, I want to see the evidence. Like, how are we just saying that, like, some two random CSIS agents, and we don't even know that they're CSIS agents, are saying that this happened? Like, if they're saying that this happened, release the evidence that this happened. And then I will believe you. Until then, I'm not going to believe you. The Prime Minister's office said it only became aware of the 2-year-old conversation following Global News' inquiries about it. So, yes, how, like, if this is true, that Global News and the Globe and Mail are privy to information that the Prime Minister's office is not privy to, then how are we to trust Global News? This is just like kind of wild. PMO spokesperson Alison Murphy wrote that her office only became aware that a conversation took place after Mr. Dong told us following recent media questions. It's almost as if it didn't matter until now. Murphy also suggested that the MP was not acting at the behest of his government. At no time was Mr. Dong ever used as a back channel. Okay, at the time of the conversation between Dong and the Chinese diplomat, Canadians were outraged that Spavor and Kovrig were held captive in secret Chinese prisons without due legal process and denied basic rights such as consular access. Now, I mean, the thing is, like, you know, we kidnapped the Huawei executive and we detained them unjustly. And then some Canadian agents of espionage, the two Michaels, were also detained unjustly. It's like, what did you think was going to happen? You know, and unfortunately, the way that a lot of Canadians view this, they just think the Michaels. It's all we hear about, the damn Michaels. And it's like, I don't care about the Michaels. You know what I do care about? Chinese-Canadian relations being in good standing and not deteriorating rapidly. But most Canadians cannot see like past their own forehead in order to understand this. Throughout 2021, then Conservative leader Erin O'Toole unsuccessfully pressed Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to take a hawkish stance with Beijing and suggested Ottawa use the threat of sanctions to secure Kovrig and Spavor's freedom. Okay, so this is Erin O'Toole proving that he is indeed a tool. Because why? You want to go to World War III to save two fucking white boys who are also already spies and knew what they're getting into? It's like, are you insane? Okay. Beijing favored the re-election of Trudeau's Liberals in the 2021 election. The two national security sources informed Global News, citing CSIS reports. Okay, so just because a foreign entity favors a certain outcome in the election does not prove that they interfered with the election. Of course, you know who else prefers a Trudeau minority? The majority of Canadians. Like, the majority of the world would prefer a Trudeau minority government than an O'Toole majority government, for example. It's just like ridiculous notion that, like, I can't believe China favored the most likely outcome of our elections without even interfering. You know, but then also implying that they interfered. It's like, okay. But at the same time, they said Beijing was hedging by secretly aiding several Conservative candidates to support its stances and attacking other Tories whom it deemed to be critics of the Chinese Communist Party. And we know that this is also something that Vincent Kay of Ontario is going through as well. But there's not nearly as much sensationalized media around Vincent Kay stepping away from the Conservative caucus, as there is now Han Dong stepping away from the Liberal caucus in Ontario and federally, respectively. Last June, O'Toole and Beijing's meddling was to blame for the loss of up to 9 Conservative candidates in the 2021 federal election. So yeah, O'Toole, based on being a butthurt loser, is aiming these allegations. We lost 8 or 9 seats to foreign interference from China. This is honestly so irresponsible. Imagine, like, I'll tell you, you know what? I'll tell you the real reason O'Toole lost. Because he sucks. Because he's a fucking loser. That's why he lost. All right? Government officials, however, have maintained that interference did not impact the overall integrity of the contest. Again and again and again, we hear this. Hey, just so we know, the interference did not impact the integrity of the election. But then at the same time, they turn around and be like, however, this is the single most important issue and is a threat to Canadian democracy. It's like, okay. Like how can it be both? While there have been a series of revelations about Chinese interference in Canadian affairs since Global News broke several stories in late 2022, the conversation between Dong and Consul General Han illustrates how political interference is not just affecting institutions. So the conversation existed, but that is fine. Like, two elected officials from two different countries talking should not be a surprise to anybody. The alleged bad stuff about the conversation has not been proven yet. So, okay, but this Global News is asserting here that this is not just affecting institutions, but also has an impact on people. In this case, the two lives at stake. One of the two national security sources said, "I don't care about the Michaels. Nobody should care about the Michaels. They're spies and they got treated like spies. Boo-hoo." CSIS investigates and gathers intelligence on foreign state activity in Canada from human sources, surveillance of meetings, and electronic interceptions. Global News has granted anonymity to sources on the Dong investigation because they face possible prosecution for sharing information on China's allegedly vast subversion of Canada's democracy, including clandestine interference in the 2019 and 2021 federal elections. So, okay, fine, grant them anonymity, but show us the proof. Show us whatever they're showing you. Why don't you show us so that we can also understand what narrative is at play here? Apart from the discussion about the two Michaels, the two sources said Dong and Consul General Han allegedly spoke at length about China's problematic reputation in Canada, as well as discussing perceptions of human rights accusations against Beijing. Following the February conversation, yada yada yada. Okay, it remains unclear whether or not CSIS has ever conveyed them to the Prime Minister's office or anyone else in the federal government. When asked to comment on the information provided by sources on the alleged Dong communications, CSIS spokesperson Eric Balsam wrote in a statement that the service could neither confirm nor deny the authenticity of the information. This should be the first paragraph. This should be in the headline. CSIS can neither confirm nor deny the authenticity of the information. Then why? Why are we pretending that it's real? CSIS can't even say if it's real. This should be the first paragraph of this article. And I think it's very irresponsible to not include that in the headline, because a lot of people are just going to read this headline. This is just actually wild. There are important limits to what we can publicly discuss, given the need to protect sensitive activities, techniques, methods, and sources of intelligence, he wrote. So they're just going to let this get aired out with limited scope and limited context in order to what? Make life harder for Chinese Canadians. What? Again, this is the thing I've been harping on this whole time. What are the real world consequences of all of this? China and Canada relations are going to deteriorate. Chinese Canadians are going to experience increased hate crimes and xenophobia. And not only Chinese Canadians, all Asian Canadians, because, Canadians do be racist like that. And it's just ridiculous. And you know what is not going to improve as a result of this? Our electoral system, because it's already super flawed and it's already a useless garbage system. So, and then now it's we need to protect first past the post at all costs. It's okay. The network has targeted at least 11 candidates, yada, yada, yada. We know this. CSIS believed him to be a witting affiliate in the alleged scheme. Well, was he? Just because CSIS believes it, does that mean it's true? Oh, it's just wild that we're going down this. Justin Trudeau saying here, I want to make sure everyone understand fully that Han Dong is an outstanding member of our team, and suggestions that he is somehow not loyal to Canada should not be entertained. And on this case, I think I agree with Justin Trudeau, because there's no evidence. Show me the evidence, and then maybe I will believe you. MP Han Dong, leaving Liberal Caucus, denies allegations of working a release of two Michaels. So yeah, this is all coming out in similar ways through these other news media sites. And I just want to reaffirm here that this is the former director of CSIS, Dick Fadden, which I know is it's a funny name, saying that as somebody who worked in intelligence and probably still does, we don't need to believe, we should be skeptical that these leaks are even coming from CSIS.
Find out where they're coming from. But I also think it is wrong to assume, absent some proof to the contrary, that the leaks are coming from CSIS. CSIS material is distributed pretty widely, between departments, ministers' offices, the central agencies. So if our history is any indication, we're going to have a great deal of trouble finding out where the leaks have come from. I think we should try and find out. If I were the director of CSIS, I would really be urging my people to batten down the hatches and making sure that the leak doesn't come from there.
Okay, so we don't even know if this is coming from CSIS. And here is somebody who used to be the director of CSIS saying, hey, don't trust that these are coming from CSIS. Part of that might be CSIS trying to cover its own ass, yes. But also, it would be nice to know if CSIS can neither confirm nor deny these allegations, then how can we trust that they're coming from CSIS? So here's Han Dong leaving the caucus.
I rise on a point of order. I have informed the Prime Minister and the leadership of the Liberal Party caucus that I will be sitting as an independent at the conclusion of these remarks. Mr. Speaker, I'm in your hands as to what happens next. To all my colleagues in the Parliament, media reports today quoting unverified and anonymous sources have attacked my reputation and called into questions my loyalty to Canada.
I really just don't think this is fair. Look at the people who are getting hurt by this. I have no love for conservatives, and I really don't have any love for liberals either. But this is hurting Vincent Kay, a Chinese Canadian MPP in Ontario. This is hurting Ken Sim, the mayor of Vancouver, who is also conservative. And this is hurting now Han Dong. And it really just feels like a xenophobic campaign, because all of those people, they're just Chinese Canadians. And it just seems like an orchestrated attack that is rooted in xenophobia.
Let me be clear. What has been reported is false, and I will defend myself against these absolutely untrue claims.
Even if in the near future Han Dong is able to somehow prove that these allegations are false, if you look on Twitter, you can see just like the outrage, right? Like the consent has already been manufactured against China and I believe Chinese Canadians.
But let me assure you, as a parliamentarian and as a person, I have never, and I will never, would never advocate or support the violation of the basic human rights of any Canadian, of anyone, anywhere, period. The accusations are false. My family came to Canada for freedom. I have had the privilege of being elected to this House, and I believe I have served honorably and pledge to continue to serve honorably and fulfill my oath of office. I will continue to serve the residents of Don Valley North as an independent member of this House. I'm taking this extraordinary step because sitting the government caucus is a privilege, and my presence there may be seen by some as a conflict of duty, and the wrong place to be as an independent investigation pursues the facts in this matter. I'll be sitting as an independent so that business of government, and indeed the business of Parliament, is not interrupted as I work to clear my name and the truth is presented to Parliament and to Canadian people. I am a proud Liberal, and
Embarrassing.
I am proud of the work our government does day in and day out to serve the people of Canada. I also don't want to distract from that important work.
It is weird to me that both Vincent Kay and now Han Dong just you can change to an independent I don't really know how it affects the optics, because to me, Vincent K is still a conservative and Han Dong is still a liberal. And I think most people are going to make that decision. I guess moving to an independent, what does it do? It maybe just indicates that they're on the outs with the establishment of their party.
Before concluding, I want to assure Mr. Michael Spavert and Mr. Michael Covert and their families that I did nothing to cause them any harm. Like everyone in this House, I worked hard and advocated for their interest as a parliamentarian.
You know, I like to think that I have a pretty good sense of when someone is lying, and I sense in this case like just the feeling of hurt. Like it's kind of the same when Ken Sim was like making their speech and was just like, you know what, like this just like hurts because it feels racist. Like this all to me just like feels like a racist thing that's happening, and it's sad.
The allegations made against me are as false as the ones made against you. To my constituents, I will continue to work on your behalf as your member of parliament. To my staff, I thank you. I know the days ahead will be difficult, but I will be there to support you as we continue to serve the people of Dao Valley North. To my family.
Yeah, I don't get that. Right, Purple Mavis. I don't get that he's like ashamed of what he did. I don't get the sense that he's lying or guilty of anything. I genuinely get the feeling that he's like being persecuted because of his race and his history of being from China.
And in particular, my parents, who brought us here to Canada.
Wouldn't that be sad if your parents brought you to Canada and then like you were accused of this just based on some unconfirmed allegations? It's ridiculous. He looks like he's about to cry.
To my wife, Sophie, and my kids, I love you. I thank you for all the support and love you give me. The truth will protect us. Our honor and our family will get through this together. Sorry about that. Thank you, Speaker.
Man, this is fucking sad. I'm like on the verge of tears watching that. Like he's truly hurt, you know? Like I think the harm that this is causing is like becoming unjustified, you know? Like just like release the evidence so that we can see it for ourselves, you know? And the last thing I would want to say here is that, like, again, you know, we watched this entire clip of him being grilled by a Globe and Mail reporter. And one thing that really just stands out to me is, I believe, this last part.
Receive a phone call from.
Let's
never
see.
receive a phone.
Interference.
I've never received a phone call from CSIS. I've never made aware that if there is investigation, whether by CSIS, RCMP, or Elections Canada, pertain to my nomination or my election.
What about
So yeah, he himself has written out to CSIS, and he's asked them to let him know what is going on. And CSIS has confirmed only that they've received his letter. And he's not been made aware of any investigation, any evidence against him. So he is just left to deal with this information that is being alleged in mainstream media. And he essentially has nothing himself to work on. And it's a really actually disgusting moment where I think a journalist is pressing somebody unjustly and they're asking him to set the record straight. He doesn't even know what he has to set the record straight about, because the allegations are not proven. So again, I think he's just like left in like a really difficult place. This all strikes me as xenophobic. We don't know where these leaks are coming from, whether it's it's CSIS or otherwise. We also know, I believe, that he has received death threats. Let me confirm that quickly, but I believe I read that. Yeah, Liberal MP Han Dong says he's gotten death threats following Chinese election interference allegations. You know, it's affecting his family. You know, like imagine if you were getting death threats and you're based on over something that is unproven. You know, how do you think your family's going to feel? How do you think your children are going to feel? And you know, your parents who brought you to Canada are going to feel. I really just think that this is going to be a scar on Canadian history. This, we might look back at this and say, wow, do you remember that time when we were led into global unrest because some random sources that were never confirmed said so? That would be really sad. It will be really sad, I think, to one day look back on this once the damage is done.